Greetings, AnCap Radio, and welcome to another episode. Today, we are live with none other than Doug Casey and Dave Henderson as we work on the back end. You know, the beautiful technical difficulties of the world of Twitter. For those who have ever run a Twitter space before, you know, or what we call it, X space, you know what I'm talking about. But we are looking forward to this conversation for multiple reasons. If you're with us live, hit that like button, hit that retweet button. Margaret, good to see you. If you are on the replay, also like button, retweet button, and let's get into it. So a few things we're going to talk about today as we prepare for our other guests, our other hosts to join us. Number one is really the story of AnCap Radio. We've never really had an opportunity to dive into where this idea came from, what the vision of it looks like, what the future of it looks like for AnCap Radio, and really how this dream was first born. And then, as you know, today is July 4th, or maybe some parts of the world, it's July 5th, kind of an iconic day in American history. We've all been indoctrinated to know what it means, what it stands for. And I think what we're really going to do today is philosophically take a look at, okay, what type of independence are we talking about here? Obviously, there's a lot of Americans that we've had on the show and got to know, myself included, where we really feel like, okay, even beyond where they're from, like philosophically, they are an anarcho-capitalist, and we like that. And you know what, whatever, we like people regardless of what they choose to call themselves. But you know, America, it's really, I guess I've just got a lot that I would like to share with Doug and Dave today that I'm doing my best to not say it now. So one moment, folks, we're going to just shoot a quick message over to our team to make sure we are doing this the correct way. So hang tight there one moment. Cool. I just got the thumbs up. They're working on it. So, well, hey, you know, there's one thing that I know that we can do as far as a teaser is, and if you haven't gone to ancapradio.com yet, go to ancapradio.com right now. Check it out. We're working on building out the site more than what you'll see, but we're very excited about a chat GPT bot that we're building, which you know, everyone here is probably familiar with Siri or Alexa, right? You say, hey, you know, tell me about this or that, Siri. Excuse me. With AnCap Radio, we are building our own anarcho-capitalist responder bot, if you will. So stay tuned for that. I mean, personally, I'm pretty excited, and there's no better person to build the bot philosophically with than Doug and Dave on all topics of anarcho-capitalism. So I do see we are getting closer and closer to our co-hosts and guests arriving with us here today. Let me drop them, or it looks like our admin is handling it here diligently. Well, let's see. What have we experienced around the world in the past month? We're in the middle of we're in the middle of an election year, which is always interesting. Would love to know. I mean, and also if anyone from the audience, as we wait for Doug and Dave to get here, if you guys have any thoughts here, would love to hear your thoughts. To me, it was interesting that the first presidential debate of this round took place, and you know, many people spectated it and watched it just like as if it was a Super Bowl, as if it was you know, any other sporting event. And so to me, it almost makes me wonder. It's like, you know, so is it really any different in sports? Like, regardless of who wins the Super Bowl, all the same stuff's going to happen around the world. I personally feel like regardless of whoever wins the election, the same stuff's going to happen. But I reserve the right to be wrong on that. So we'd love to know. Love to know our audience. Love to know you guys. Popcorn, Margaret, Sandra, your thoughts on the debates and this whole season that we're going through now. Like, do you guys actually think that this type of stuff makes a difference, or is it all just a big show, just like sports? What else? What are some other philosophical thoughts that have gone through my mind lately? Well, I sit here looking at my Liberland flag, and I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Liberland. I happen to be a citizen of Liberland. Um, Look at my Liberland, excuse me, my Liberland passport right now as well. Um, And there's some really interesting things happening in the Balkans right now with Liberland in particular. If you take a look at floatingman.ll.land, I'll give another plug for them here. Floatingman.ll.land. That's the website for Liberland's upcoming summer conference slash fiesta. Been to it once. It was a good time. I don't think I'll be making it this year, but I have a feeling now is a really good time to start considering getting more involved with Liberland, and considering citizenship. If Liberland is completely new to you as well, I guess I'm kind of just hopping in here assuming everyone knows what I'm talking about. You can go to liberland.org for more information. You can also scroll through our feed. We've had a handful of Liberlandians on the show, including the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Tom Walls. I know Doug has spoken at their events live as well in the past, and hey, if there's any startup country that exists in the world that would be closest to the AnCap philosophy as far as how they are going to govern or how they are governing things, Liberland is the answer. I'll have to check my Liberland email now that I think about it too, because I do help the citizenship team with onboarding. So I'm sure we probably have a few requests for citizenship now that I didn't even think about until we went live. So Liberland.org for more information if you guys want to be associated with a country that is changing the dynamic of how the state should exist. Leader of the pack right there. I do see from our team here, and I can see, it's funny, we have Zoom pulled up here, so I can see Doug and Dave right now, and it looks like we're just trying to see. Okay, so I can tell you guys this too. We are going to be transitioning AnCap Radio to our own platform very soon, which for this exact reason, I know we're all looking forward to it, to avoid the chaos that comes with going live on Twitter Spaces. Now, good to see, good to see Doug is here. I know we're working on getting Dave in here in a moment too, so we're making progress. But yeah, for updates on our own app, which we are currently building, in order to avoid these types of scenarios moving forward, we are going to be launching that app. And you can get all the updates on the announcements tied to that on ancapradio.com. I believe ancapradio.com, we have somewhere for you to drop your information too, so you get all the email updates, all of that good stuff. So go ahead and do that. If you're just joining us now, again, hit that like button, hit that retweet button if you're on the replay. Appreciate your listenership. We're going to get into it here momentarily with Doug and with Dave. Once we just get this the final strokes of technicalities taken care of. So I'm going to see if we can, I'm sure our team is doing it here as well, but let's see if we can invite Doug up here to speak. We'll click the button and see what happens there. So shifting, let's see. Well, I mean, we were talking about the election that we're going through right now here, 2024. To me, I always find it fascinating to pause and reflect and look back at the last, call it 3 decades of elections. One thing that comes to mind for me, and a band that I'm a huge fan of, and I do see we have Dave. we're getting there. Hey, all right, we are making progress. We have Doug here. I was going to say, for those who are fans of Rage Against the Machine, rock and roll band from the '90s, they had a really good music video for the song "Testify," which was pretty radical at the time. Looking back on it, you feel like you could see, it's just a great music video. Go watch it. Testify, Rage Against the Machine. So anyways, here we go. We've got one of two with us here on the call. And maybe if we could, I see there's a little bit of background noise there. Okay, Mark, you got it. Cool. Doug, good to have you here on America's holiday. Where are you calling from?
Look, I'm in Punta del Este, Uruguay at the moment, Adam. I'll be coming back to the U.S. or going back to the U.S. Next week with a little bit of fear and trepidation, I've got to say.
Sure. I would love to get your genuine take on this one, Doug, because I'm sure you've ran into it before. It could be just the fact that I'm in Canada, so I've experienced this lately. But do you feel, as you've kind of traveled and lived around the world, when people find out that you're American, they kind of go, "Oh, I knew there was a reason why you were such a go-getter. I knew it, and it's because you're American." Like, have you ever ran into that?
I'm not sure that I have, actually. Do you think that that's a common reaction of non Americans?
I've got, and maybe it's only in Canada, but I'd say the past 3 or 4 months, it's happened multiple times, and I found it shocking. But at the same time, I'm like, well, is there something fundamentally correct that we are doing in the U.S.?
Well, certainly nothing that the government's doing. And I'm afraid that most people equate America with its government. I mean, when you listen to the news, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, doesn't matter which of them, they're all just talking about what the government is doing and what government officials are doing. So, uh, of course,
Sounds like a
I see
coincidence.
I see the government as not representing the U.S., but as being a predator, actually, that dominates the country. It's not your friend; it's your enemy. But everybody thinks that the government is the country. I mean, that's the view I have on it, anyway.
Sure, and I mean on this day too. For me in my journey, I reflect back on a time where I would have much more proudly rocked a pair of American flag shorts on a day like today. Pretty neutral nowadays. But for you and your journey, were you ever someone you consider like a pretty extreme patriot, or all in on America, or have you always been the Doug Casey that we know?
No, I frankly I've evolved into being an anarcho-capitalist over the years, and I think I've explained this before. Uh, when I was a little kid, I started out as a liberal. I didn't know it. I mean, but what it was is my mother and I were driving through Chicago, through the ghettos, as it was at the time. I don't know why. And I was kind of appalled at the conditions that and they were mostly black people were living in. And when I got home, I asked my mother to type a letter to President Eisenhower, who was the president at the time, uh, saying, "Can't you do something?" Well, what a stupid letter. I mean, what do you expect from a 7-year-old kid? But as time went on, especially after I read Barry Goldwater's book, Conscience of a Conservative, I read that in like 1963. I realized that I guess I was a conservative. Then, after I read Ayn Rand's book, The Virtue of Selfishness, I realized, no, I'm really an objectivist. And then finally, when I evolved into being a libertarian, which are less, which are, which are sympathetic to objectivists, but not dogmatic the way objectivists are. Objectivism is actually a secular religion. Uh, then I read Morris and Linda Tannehill's book, The Market for Liberty, and I realized that actually I was an anarcho-capitalist. That occurred back in about 1971, and I've been an anarcho-capitalist ever since then. That's a long time already.
Wow. So did that was that the phraseology used in that book? Was that the first time you heard the phrase anarcho-capitalist, or when was that for you?
That's a good question. Uh, does that phrase occur in the Tannehill book? Hmm. I don't have a copy of it in front of me. And of course, there's not an index of words in that book to look it up. But that's a very good question, Adam. Where did the phrase anarcho-capitalism originate? I'm actually not sure.
It'd be cool. Yeah, we'll have to look into that, because I know for me personally, I hadn't heard of any of this until 2017 at the earliest, and it was Jeff Berwick was the first one I heard use it. But knowing Jeff, he probably got that from you somewhere between 2000 and 2010.
Well, I've got to say that Jeff told me, and it was very nice of him to tell me this, that I was the first one that identified him as a libertarian. We were talking about things in general years ago. And I said, Jeff, you may not know it, but you're a libertarian. And Jeff was not familiar with the word. So he was always kind of a gut libertarian, I guess. Uh, but where did the word anarcho-capitalism come from? Good question. Because, of course, there have been several strains of anarchism through the years, mainly an American strain, which is very pro-freedom, and a European strain, which is somehow integrated with socialism. Uh, but where did it come from? Could it have been Murray Rothbard that coined the word? Possibly.
We'll have to find it, and I'm sure wherever it first began was spoken word before someone wrote it down. But that's Mark. I know you're listening right now. That's a task. The first time anarcho-capitalism was referred to as a philosophy or ideology.
I'll have to ask Walter Block when I talk to him next, because Walter knows almost everything about this type of thing. I'll find out.
Sounds good. So, I mean, how do you feel about the kind of the concept of patriotism? It's something that I've reflected on over the past few years, in particular, similar to what we look like when we're born, uh, talents, skill sets, traits. Like, these are all things that we have no say in, no choice in. And so, I've always found patriotism to be a little bit weird when you really peel it back, because at the end of the day, no one chose where they were born, right? So to be so passionate about where you were born, even though it was not your own choice, I could much more understand someone like you, Doug, who um, moved to Argentina, speak very highly of it, and for a lot of the right reasons. It's like, okay, I could understand some patriotism there, but would you argue that the world's just got it all confused, Americans as well?
Well, what is patriotism? It's basically a view that my country is the best country in the world because I was born there. And that flows easily into my country, right or wrong. And I don't believe that at all. Uh, it's very hard being a patriot because what your country does and represents is in great measure determined by the government. And inevitably, and almost an exception, the worst possible kind of people are drawn to government and go into government. So it's very, very hard to rationalize patriotism because it amounts to supporting your government for practical purposes today. I like the culture of the US, frankly. And it was the only country in world history that was actually founded on libertarian values. No other, that's not true of any other country. So, yeah, I'm very sympathetic to people that have warm feelings about the US. I have warm feelings about America. In fact, let me correct myself. We got to make a distinction between the United States uh, and America. America's a concept, and it can be anywhere, be taken anywhere. But the United States is a political entity controlled by a particular government. So it's a confused dog's breakfast, actually, Adam. These words, which are bandied around.
Right. Well, that's a way that I've never looked at it before, but definitely will moving forward. It's hitting the nail on the head there. America is more of a way of living, right? And culturally, I agree with you. The U.S. has some of the most high quality people that I know I've been able to meet, and I know a large piece of that is just being from there. But as, as far as also us growing a brand here and a business for AnCap Radio, a lot of our ideal listeners are in the U.S. Why is that? I mean, you say sure, we're speaking English. Um, America was built on libertarian principles, which I actually would like to maybe talk about that here in a moment. But um, yeah, I think America is definitely. I've never even thought of it that way before, so it's kind of mind blowing right now. But America as a concept in the United States is a geographical, or sorry, a political entity.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the concept of America has been appropriated by some very questionable people. And the basic founding ideas of America are being flushed away right before our very eyes. And it's increasingly hard to support the United States of America because of what it does. Uh, I mean, it's a political entity with 800 military bases around the world, uh, causing corruption and bribery, and by paying off people and countries with not just billions, but scores of billions of dollars all around the world. So the United States of America actually has almost nothing to do with America the ideal or America with its founding principles.
When you say the U.S. was founded on libertarian principles, in my mind, I think I know why and how you say that, but I would like to hear it from you. What was the linchpin moment there? Is there one single moment? Is it multiple? I know the Boston Tea Party, obviously, at least as far as the history books that were fed, as far as tells us, that kind of seems like that could be the moment. Um, but what does that mean to you?
Uh, well, what are the founding principles of America? They're not, first of all, I'd say that they're enumerated in the Declaration of Independence much more than they are in the Constitution. The Constitution itself, the basic Constitution, is just like an operating program for running the government. Uh, uh, who decides the uh, a deadlock in the Senate? The vice president determines how the Congress is elected, how the Supreme Court is put together. Stuff like that is what is in the Constitution. So, uh, what I like about America's founding documents are the Declaration of Independence, which is really, if you wrote the Declaration of Independence today, and everybody should read it. I don't think many people read it. I've read it several times. Uh, you might be put in jail for saying the things that the Declaration of Independence does. The other part of the Constitution that I like is the Bill of Rights, uh, the first 10 amendments, which are basically there to act as doesn't just say how the government will work, which is what the main part of the Constitution says, but the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, are a straitjacket that they attempted to put on the government to keep it from doing all the things that it does today. So it's kind of worked, but not terribly well because the Bill of Rights is more or less a dead letter today. But answer the question, those are the two founding documents that I think spell out what America is all about. The Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence. But I think I could go further than that because it's hard to remember the 10 amendments to the Bill of Rights. I mean, most humans, all of us, are used to counting 2, 3, many. It's hard to remember things. I mean, frankly, I can't remember the 10 Commandments. I guess I could remember them, not necessarily in order, but that's too many things to remember. So I think there are only 2 rules that you've got to observe. And anybody can remember 2 things. That's pretty simple. 1, do all that you say you're going to do. And 2, don't impinge upon other people or their property. And that could be a simple enough constitution. Although I'd take it even further than that. I like to say, the whole of the law shall be do as thou wilt, but be prepared to accept the consequences. And if you say that, then people generally do wind up doing what they want to do. But they don't think, well, wait a minute, but I have to accept the consequences of what I do. And then they might think things out a little bit better. And if you think things out, you're forced to take personal responsibility for your actions and your words. So anyway,
Yeah.
sorry for that dissertation, Adam.
Well, we needed an anarcho-capitalist declaration. I think I think that's it right there. And I have that first one you referred to written down here on my desk, just as a reminder. And I got this from Rick Mayberry, but I'm sure people have other iterations as well. Do all you have agreed to do, and do not encroach on other persons or their property. Um, and what was the second one?
And Rick is actually uh, promoted that concept more than anybody else I can think of. I don't know who originated it exactly in those words, but he's the big promoter of it. The other thing you mentioned, the one great law that I mentioned
Right, yeah,
second.
because I have heard you share that one multiple times before, but I'm trying to remember, what was it again, about accepting the consequences?
Oh, yeah. Well, that actually comes from, I actually got it from Aleister Crowley, who is a person of, in some ways, questionable reputation. But Crowley liked to say, the whole of the law is do as thou wilt. Okay, that's what people do. But that doesn't work unless you append another phrase to it, which, am I the first person that's done this and said it? I'm not sure. I may be. But it's
Right.
do, do the whole of the law shall be do as thou wilt, but be prepared to accept the consequences. And most people that decide they're going to just do what they want don't think about the consequences. And if they do, they're not really prepared to accept them. Therefore, they don't think about what it is that they think they want to do or feel they want to do. And we might draw a distinction there between thinking and feeling, 2 words that are often conflated.
We are halfway through our time here, by the way, today, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have not already, hit the like button, hit the retweet button, do that. And we are going to open up the floor for callers now as well. So if you do have a question for Doug as we make our way through here, just feel free to tap that request button at the bottom of your screen there, and we'll get you up here for your question or for your comment. Doug, where do you...
Incidentally, Adam, where's Dave? Where's Dave Henderson wandered off to?
That's a great question. He's working. I can see with our... I have our Zoom meeting pulled up here. He's going back and forth with Mark right now to get him up on stage. So he is listening, and I think just having some technical difficulties, which is why we're working on really building an app for what we're doing here. But Doug, where do you see the
Go
next?
ahead,
I
Adam.
mean,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. What is the next America? Is it Argentina?
Well, I've got to say that what Milei is doing in Argentina is just amazing. And he's gotten most of his uh, base law passed. And it basically amounts to firing tens of thousands of government employees. In Argentina, we call them gnocchis. You know what a gnocchi is? It's one
Right.
of those little, it's like a little dough ball made out of, I guess, mostly potato flour. And it just sits there inert. And
Right.
that's what Argentines call government employees down here. Uh, yeah, he's making tremendous progress. He's rolling back the size of the government, abolishing agencies, firing employees, eliminating taxes. Uh, they've stopped printing money so that in the most recent period that they're reported, not that I trust government figures, but you can see it actually. Uh, Prices are no longer rising. Some prices are falling in Argentina in peso terms, which is pretty amazing.
I cannot hear you in Twitter.
So if he keeps the momentum going, eventually people will have confidence that this is real, and they'll be willing to bring money into the country, which in the past has been a highly speculative and kind of stupid thing to do. I speak as somebody who's acted stupidly and brought millions of dollars into Argentina, uh, much to my financial regret. Although I really enjoyed living down in Argentina, the culture's wonderful. It's the seventh largest country in the world with only 45 million people, and most of them live in or around Buenos Aires. So it's a wide open, beautiful country. Answer to the question, Adam, short answer, it's very likely over the next year or so that people from all over the world are looking for freedom and prosperity are going to pile into Argentina. And I might point out to those listening, if they're not aware, that Argentina is about the easiest country in the world to become a citizen. It takes only 2 years of residence to become a citizen, and residency is only living here 6 months of the year. And I think it's critically important that everybody have a second citizenship and passport. And Argentina is the easiest and by far the cheapest, and it's an excellent passport. It's one of the best in the world, incidentally. So everybody listening should consider that and think of becoming an Argentine citizen.
Sold. I know they're known for their they do very well with their grill. What do you call it? The Argentine beef, right? They're known for their beef.
Well, it's an asado. Yes, that's what we
Thank you. That's the word I
call it
was
in
looking for.
Argentina.
We have Dave
Yeah,
here, by the way.
that's
There's rumors, Doug, that you might be making a return to New Zealand as well, though, which is a pretty free place to live, I hear, too.
God. I love New Zealand. I I should have become a Kiwi citizen because I was on track for it, but the Kiwi tax system caught me up, and I idiotically. It would have been very hard and a nuisance and costly. You have to put everything you own financially, basically, into a trust before you start the process of becoming a Kiwi citizen. Uh, I didn't, and so I would have been trapped in a horrible tax system if I'd become a Kiwi citizen. And I should be, but I'm not. Anyway.
And New Zealand
I
misses you
screwed
too,
up.
Doug.
Say what, Dave?
New Zealand misses you too.
Well, I know. I can easily imagine myself hanging out with you down there in Queenstown, just making the lives of the bad guys miserable, Dave.
Yeah, no, that would be, and you would have come close to doubling the AnCap population in New Zealand with your arrival here, of course. But I'm sure over time we would have improved that. But I apologize. My techno incompetence, technophilia managed to get up the better of me. But anyway, Mark got me, our producer got us sorted now. But I'm pleased that young guys like you and Adam who are technically savvy were able to hold the floor well.
Well, it's only because my wife helped me that I was able to get on the X channel that we have, because I have Twitter downloaded on my iPhone, which I never use, incidentally, because I hate talking on the phone as a general rule. But I went to Twitter and I tried to find our channel, and I couldn't do it.
Right.
My wife found it.
There you
So
go.
how is it that Tucker Carlson was able to, make such a big splash? Well, Tucker's not an anarcho-capitalist. He doesn't scare people away, which I guess we do.
Yeah, I know. We were going to talk somewhat about this morning. We're hoping to talk, the three of us, about the future of AnCap Radio and what we wanted to do. One of the things which I think we've discussed briefly is creating our own AnCap AI. Given that there's a lack of AnCap biological intelligence in the world, we thought some artificial AnCap intelligence might be a good step in the right direction. And so I heard you talking earlier about books that had influenced you. And so what we've been doing, or in the process of doing, is getting PDFs of a number of books and loading them through Chat GPT to create our own AI. And so we started with the virtue of selfishness, the Tannehills, as you said, the market for liberty, von Mises' human action, Henry Hazlitt's economics in one lesson, dear old Walter Block's defending the undefendable. Who else did we have, Adam? We had a sixth one. Is that it for the moment?
I think that was it. Was 5, and then we have
Okay.
a massive library now of transcriptions from all of our episodes over the past year or so. So this is going to be a very sharp AI when it comes to AnCap. We're debating on the name comes next, Doug. I don't know if we're going to make it a female or male. If we go female, I think we got to name her Eris.
Oh yes, I like that a lot. And also, I would add some of Thomas Sowell's books,
Right.
because he's a really smart and sound guy, and he doesn't get the kind of credit that he deserves.
No, that's very good. And the other one was The Anatomy of the State by Rothbard. And so we just need some further input. We can keep loading these in there with the proposition.
Well, are you saying that once you've downloaded these books, that the AI can put them together and answer any question?
Any question.
Correct.
Oh, that is interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So we'll have our fine, pure, reasonably pure AI load on our website where people can access it and they can ask it any question about economics, about politics, about moral philosophy, and be able to get a truly intelligent answer. That's the aspiration, anyway.
Well, how can we direct the attention of the 8 billion people on the planet to the channel where they can ask those questions?
Yeah. That's a very good point, and that's something we've got to solve. But the bigger problem for us is once they get the answer from our AI to their questions, how can we stop them getting angry? That's the more important question.
I'm not sure I want to stop them. I'm not sure I want to stop them from getting angry, because they're going to get angry at the establishment, the powers that be.
Oh,
the
yeah,
state,
no. That anger we want to foster and focus and channel. No, but generally the problem is, of course, people get an answer to a political question, but particularly to a moral proposition, and they don't like it at an anarcho-cap level, and want to dump it. But anyway, that's a longer term challenge, I fear, Doug. Yeah, no, we've got to crack how we promote our website, and you found AI.
AI, building our own app where we don't have to deal with the technical challenges that we see over and over with Twitter Spaces. These are a few things, but I mean, I do think that it'd be helpful for the AnCap radio story to just be out there as well. I think even myself included. Now I think about it, Dave and Doug, I don't know how you guys initially met. Doug, I know at some point in your journey you ended up in New Zealand. You and Dave obviously got connected there. How did that all go down? You've obviously become very good friends. We're working on AnCap radio now. Let's do the whole story, if you will.
How did that happen, Dave? I don't know how we met. It was in New Zealand, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, we had some mutual friend out of the US. I'm just trying to think of who that was. It was a delightful guy in California who I'd encountered in the US. And
you're not talking about Robert Ringer, though. I know you're
not
talking about Robert Ringer.
No, I preface this with delightful.
Delightful.
No, it wasn't. It was a guy who was a real hardcore anarcho-capitalist in California. His name will come to me in a minute. I'm sorry, Doug. To be fair, Adam, this is nearly 30. This is 30 odd years ago now. So anyway, I mean, and that's one of the important things of fostering this community on AnCap Radio, is to enable people to have the benefit of hooking up with other AnCaps. We could put an AnCap dating site together too on our on AnCap Radio.
I think unfortunately it'd probably be about 85% male, but we could do it.
That's true.
Yeah, that is true. Unfortunately, because most liberals in the U.S. turn out to be women, and since libertarianism is an intellectually oriented philosophy, it's not soft and cuddly. Most libertarians tend to be men, so we do suffer a lack in that regard.
Yeah, indeed. But it would be great to hear from some of our listeners, Adam, as to any particular book recommendations that they think we should be loading into our AI.
That is a great idea.
If people are listening now and they've got some suggestions, they're welcome to call in and make those. And beyond that, of course, we need to set up the program, or set up the details about the program as soon as possible on their website, and invite suggestions on that as well. Yeah, but that will be fascinating, won't it, Doug, to put it to the test and see how pure and aligned our fine artificial intelligent AnCap hero becomes.
It's unclear to me, even to this day, how anybody found this channel on Twitter, because I've never been on Twitter before this, and I don't think you have. Adam, were you a Twitterite before this?
Excuse me, not as anywhere near as active as we have been the past year. There was a phase, and this is speaking on behalf of all millennials, that if we have any here tuned in, you might remember. Actually, Twitter first got big in 2008 when Obama was running for office, and it was, hey, this new cool presidential candidate, he's on Twitter now, go get the app. Like, that's really how it first began, looking back on it. And I'd say from about 2008 till about 2015, it was a pretty popular platform. And then it seemed to have died out over the past decade. But then obviously with Musk getting involved, there's been a resurgence. All that being said, most anarcho-capitalists don't have or don't use social media, which is, I think, was the number one roadblock we ran into so far in the past year, and another reason why we really want to build out this platform that we can run, that we can control. So, yeah, Doug, to be honest, not a whole lot of activity on Twitter. I do know it's popular for sports and day trading, cryptocurrency, that type of stuff. But I did want to kind of go back to what Dave said. If we have anyone here in the audience, I see Paul, you've been here a while, Ray San, Neo. I mean, if anyone has any recommendations on solid libertarian or anarcho-capitalist philosophic books, we are building out this platform, this AI. So would love to hear if anyone in the audience has a recommendation. You just tap that request button down at the bottom of the screen. But yeah, Doug, go ahead. That's the Twitter story.
So if Adam, we'll just go back to what we were talking about in terms of AnCap Radio, and our aspiration to build our own app, which is where we've got to end up. And I mean, I've never been on Twitter before, and that is in part, I guess, a sort of a generational thing, as you're alluding to. But it's also just I find Twitter generally just so mindless, and the stuff on it is it's like sitting in a coffee shop and listening to the cacophony going on around you, and just realizing that 99% of it is just mindless chatter of people complaining, how terrible everything is, or how terrible everyone is, and who they dislike and who they hate, and who should be banished to some other planet. But and so I've just never enjoyed it in the slightest. I have friends who are politically aligned to me who do use it because they find it meaningful as a news source, and hook up with some like-minded people. But I've always found it of little value.
It is, Twitter, of all the social platforms out there, or X, it does seem to be the most ruthless, the most intense, the most in your face. I mean, I do believe it will benefit us to, at some point, have a presence on every platform. Okay, maybe we're going live or recording our content on our own, but the only way we reach the 8 billion people Doug is referring to is, unfortunately, to play in this arena too, or at least have a presence here. So, there's a content creator I follow who mentioned, he only uses the social media apps for exactly that, to put content out. He's not a consumer, he's a creator. And, they call it death scrolling when you hop on a social media app and then you just start scrolling. I don't see that being an issue for you or for Doug, but a lot of the people we're trying to reach, it is. So we gotta pull them out of the trenches.
Indeed.
Well, how does that differ from an influencer, a word that I've heard used a lot, especially in regard to people that are peddling stuff or trying to be big shots or influencer? How does that differ from a creator or
that's
whatever?
I guess the words are interchangeable. It's funny, Doug. I'm sure many here would agree that you, whether you realize it or not, you're an influencer. So you are a content creator, especially with your podcast with Matt, and even what we're doing right now. So if you want to know what one is or what it looks like, look in the mirror.
Well, I guess everybody wants to have an effect. Everybody wants to change the world, if not rule the world. But what's the point? Once you have your position, you can get 3 squares, have a cot to sleep in at night. What's the point of trying to influence other people? I don't know. I'm ambivalent. I'm ambivalent about it.
Well,
if I'm an influencer, I'm a very ambivalent influencer because it's so easy to get into when you reach out into the broad world to attract all kinds of flack and people that want to argue with you. And I have no interest at all in arguing with people. I'm happy to have a discussion with people, a Socratic dialogue where we ask questions, try to come up with intellectually honest answers. But I don't think that describes the media or this stuff, social media, very well.
No, you're absolutely right. And the problem is, Doug, is that the people that want to argue with you, they're arguing over an idea, aren't they? They're arguing over a premise or a principle, but they can't tell you where their particular idea or premise that they're promoting, where it came from, how they arrived at it. It just, as you were alluding to earlier, it just feels right, or it just seems right. And so for that reason, they decide it's got currency, and therefore it needs to be foisted on the world and loudly asserted.
Yeah, you're right. It seems like most of the people, including most of the people in the conventional political world, are really just venting emotions, venting their feelings,
right,
and trying to gussy up their feelings in some kind of a semi-intellectual coat to wear.
Yeah,
but they're intellectually defensible or honest.
yeah, no, it's deeply dishonest because they're arguing for something that they can't tell you where it comes from or why it has value, why it's truthful, why it has currency. If you can't sheet your if you can't sheet the proposition you're advancing back to some moral principle or metaphysical principle, then you've got no right to assert it.
Yeah, but it's so much easier to talk about. The Kardashians. I'm told they're very, very popular, but I'm also told that they don't talk about anything other than clothes and the utmost of trivialities. But people would rather listen to that, wouldn't they?
That's true. No, if we were to send some AV device off into space for some long lost distant planet where there is civilization to understand who we are, you would send a couple of seasons of the Kardashians out there. And I mean, nothing else should keep them away from here for better than having to sit and watch some episodes of the Kardashians.
In that Carl Sagan novel, Contact,
yeah,
which was made into an excellent movie with Jodie Foster. I thought it was a great movie, incidentally. You might recall that what first attracted the aliens' attention to the Earth was a speech by Der Fuhrer in Germany, because that was apparently the first television broadcast was Der Fuhrer giving a speech. And I think that's what I
Yeah.
think that's a fact,
Yeah.
and that's what drew the attention of the aliens to the U.S.
Ah.
or to the world. To the world.
Well, looking at looking at the repository, as I've heard Dave refer to it as before, of AnCap philosophy, I think really that is the goal, that is the vision, that is what we're even doing right now, is just creating a centralized, even though we don't really believe in centralization, a centralized place that everyone around the world can come to and learn more. And if there's anything worth creating, in my opinion and from my observation, and this is where I would love to hear both Dave and Doug your take. You look at and Doug, you just said you just referred to Socrates earlier. This is Socratic. You think of all the famous philosophers we've had that we're aware of in our lifespan, and even up to thousands of years ago. That's the one thing that really transcends cultures and eras and generations is philosophy. And to be able to be a part of something where we're building a repository for a philosophy, that again, it transcends the influencer thing that you were talking about as well, Doug. So
Yeah.
I feel silly asking the question, but is that the goal here? Is that the vision of AnCap Radio?
Yeah.
Well, philosophy, philosophy. The meaning of the word is love of wisdom, and love of wisdom.
And just go back to you had asked Doug earlier what the transition was of his political philosophy anyway, the journey of his political philosophy, and there's that great saying, isn't there, Doug, that it all starts with Ayn Rand, which is so true. I know of many fellow travelers that I encounter. It starts with Rand, but philosophy's, the love of wisdom, as Doug said, it's the study of the nature of existence. And I doubt there's a person listening to this whose lives haven't been enriched as a consequence of the work they've done on themselves to move themselves philosophically from a position of confusion, doubt, misunderstanding to a position of more clarity. And it's you unquestionably live a more meaningful life, a more rewarding life, a more satisfying life when you do take the time and make the effort to resolve philosophic issues in yourself. And so, you get back. AnCap Radio is talking primarily at a political level. And in my view, political philosophy is the easiest of all the branches of philosophy to resolve. It's certainly the most tangible. And in many respects, one shouldn't be venturing into deeper metaphysical inquiry without being able to get the simplicity of political philosophy, which is, Doug articulated beautifully earlier. And so I don't need to, but as a consequence of that, one becomes freer, and that's what every person on the face of this planet should be aspiring to: is more personal liberty, more personal freedom, which of course is unavoidably linked to more personal responsibility. And of course, as we know, that's where the problem starts. But that's what the hope of AnCap Radio is that we can get people to understand the essence of this AnCap philosophy, why it's significant, why it's important, and how they can use it in their lives.
Yeah, that's right. And I would tie that in also, not to what you said about political philosophy is quite correct, Dave. But I would say that we want to examine moral philosophy. Now, moral philosophy sounds moral philosophy. Who needs that? That's the kind of thing preachers bend your ear with on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Who needs that?
Yeah.
But Actually, it's about doing the right thing, and that amounts to being a stand-up guy.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to, frankly, or should want to be a stand-up guy.
Right.
So that's what that's to
Yeah.
determine.
Yeah. And as we know, Doug, you're quite right. I mean, moral philosophy just gets dismissed with a wave of a hand. And it, we were talking about objectivists, but earlier on, and you're right, it sort of becomes dogmatic after a while. But the problem at a moral level certainly is subjectivism, isn't it? And subjectivists, people who just rely on how they feel to determine what is morally correct, and you just come off the rails at that point.
Yeah. Well, Dave, all I can say is that I wish I'd gotten my Kiwi passport. I love being here in Uruguay and Argentina, but actually I like New Zealand more in many ways. So if it hadn't been for the New Zealand state, we'd be having this conversation in person, like as not.
There you go, wouldn't we be? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dave, I guess I'll need your help setting up a trust before we get there.
Yeah. No. I'll encourage that, and you've got that great bit of advice from Doug, and indeed anyone who's listening is a very welcome in New Zealand, and I know why Doug lives in the places he does live. And I understand that completely. And I mean, I'm born in New Zealand. I carry a New Zealand passport, but I also choose to live here because it is some distance away from the madness that is mostly infecting the northern hemisphere right now, which shows no sign of abating.
Yeah. I when I was living there, I think it took 3 years of residence to become a Kiwi.
Yeah.
I think it takes 5 years now, doesn't it?
Doug, I've lost track of it. I have people that ask me from time to time, and I have friends who are immigration lawyers who I point them to. But I must check up for the benefit of trying to actively encourage people of our philosophic bent to get here. So I'll do that, and we can perhaps even run an episode on that sometime, Adam.
Definitely. To bring this one down for a landing, I'd love to hear both your opinions or both your takes on this one. What are some words of wisdom, or what would you recommend to maybe a viewer or a listener that we have right now who is feeling very excited and proud that today is the 4th of July?
Yeah, well, 4th of July ain't what it used to be. I mean, it's supposed to be Independence Day, but unfortunately, most Americans are dependent on the state, not independent of the state.
Yeah.
So, the U.S. has pretty much transformed itself, and it's turned into a degenerate empire on its way down. It ain't what it used to be. It's very sad. Very sad.
Yeah.
Wish I could say that with the intonation that Trump has. He says very sad in a certain way.
Yeah, doesn't he? That's funny. It was 4th of July here yesterday, of course, Doug, and I reflected on that because I think it's in terms of political history, the 4th of July is very significant, and it was a unique moment in time. That whole period was a unique moment in time in terms of the articulations of fundamentally libertarian philosophy that emanated from there. Jefferson, who had many great observations, but one of them was that basically you need a revolution every 20 years. He was quite right, that just the decline. Jefferson was the 3rd president of the US when he came in 1800. he had to repeal a whole bunch of legislation, because and this is the nature of things, is that people, through their fundamental avoidance of personal responsibility, just end up gravitating to anyone, whether it be organized religion or organized state, who will offer them a free pass away from having to stand responsible for their choices and for their actions. So, it's very sad that 4th of July has it's just become meaningless philosophically.
Yeah. Oh, well.
The AnCap,
Well,
4th of July is November 5th, correct?
Ah,
Yeah, that's it.
of course. And oddly enough, Guy Fawkes Day is when we have the next elections in the U.S., assuming we have them. That's not a certainty, in my opinion.
I hadn't appreciated that. That's hilarious. God.
It is hilarious. Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, assuming
the timing is scary.
But at the moment, my greatest entertainment is waking up in the morning and reading the American newspapers, and seeing all the liberal newspapers turning on Biden, and the infighting and that's going on is just so sensational. I know it won't lead to anything that's constructive or good, but it's good to see the bloodletting that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is our time for here today, folks, on AnCap Radio. If you do not already follow the station channel here on Twitter, make sure you do so. Give Doug a follow, Dave a follow, myself as well. Be greatly appreciated. Hit the like button and the retweet button, and we will keep you guys updated on the app, the website, the AI we're building, everything else we referred to on today's episode. Stay tuned. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Adam. Dave.
I don't know if we'll see him next week, but it just sounded like.
Yeah, it does sound like a. I don't even know how you like on the